All right, welcome everyone. I'm re-recording these at home. I'm tired, so hopefully it turns out okay. But this video is going to be all about domain and range. All of these problems will be a single interval. That means like you'll just have like one set of brackets or parentheses. I'll try and maybe just throw one at the end where you have to, but keep in mind pretty much most of the questions you're going to see on this quiz and just in general, most functions don't have breaks in them. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know some of the examples we looked initially were probably more difficult. Back to the drawing board. I mean, if I could do over, I'd probably like build ourselves up to those more. So live and learn. But let's just see a bunch of problems. If you have questions, I am available third period, fifth period. I'm usually just hanging in my room, but give me a heads up in case I got a spot sub. Sixth period, I have study hall duty. So I'm in the little theater. Any of those periods you're off or have lunch, you could probably stop by if you need help with anything, and that's open for this entire year. And also after school, basically most days I'm here till at least 3 at work. I can stay later, especially if there's a need for it. So I mean, I do try and help. I mean, I know some people are getting frustrated. I mean, I know my explanations are perfect, but I mean, sometimes it's just a limit of time, so I can't do as much as I want. But I mean, I'll keep trying to optimize and use my time more efficiently this school year. But let's jump in. Let's just say first thing I kind of wrote it up here. Domain is your left and right. So you're typically looking at your, well, not typically, you are looking at your x-axis. Your range is your y values or your up and down. So range is how far it goes up and down is essentially what you're trying to figure out. So let's look at this first one. So we'll start with the domain. We're looking at the x-axis. So the furthest it goes to the left is here. The furthest it goes to the right is here. So if you look, that's between -5 and 5. So that's what it's going to be between. Since this one, just make sure my writing over top doesn't get too much, but since this is an open circle, that's going to be a parentheses or like a round one. Since this end is a bracket, it would be like a square bracket. Okay, so that's our range. Let's look at sorry, that was our domain. Let's look at our range. Sorry, I am sleepy, so I might misspeak. I'll try and catch any mistakes, but so we're looking at our y value. So like the lowest this graph goes is here, the highest it goes is here. So like the highest it goes is 2, the lowest it goes is -2. Let me erase, yeah, that scribble there. So it's going to be between -2 and 2. Question might be what ends do we have? And there might be some debate about this bottom, but on this bottom one, even though this is an open circle on the left, you have solid dots that are down at 2. So you do have an x value at 2, not at this open circle, but you have points at these values. So that's included because you do have solid dots at that y value. So that would be a bracket. And then 2 is not really a question. I mean, these are solid points. So that would be a bracket as well. Is it a function? If it's graphically, you want to think of that vertical line test. I mean, this one would pass the vertical line test. Anywhere you draw a vertical line test, it hits 1 point or even no points. So that is acceptable. Remember, it's not a function if it hits more than one spot. If you can draw a vertical line, that would do that anywhere. It only has to do that in one spot too. So a lot of times it's more than one, but all right, let's look at our next one. Oops, I forgot to erase this guy from earlier. Let me just do that quick. Spoilers. All right, but number 2, we'll do our domain first, so left and right. This one's unique in the sense that these arrows mean it's going to keep going in that direction forever. So even though it almost looks like it's going straight up and down, it's actually like this arrow up here is going to keep going towards the right. Like even if it's slow, I mean, it's going to go up for an infinite amount of time. Even an inch per day, an infinite amount of time is going to go miles, and even more like distance, like give it enough time. So even if it doesn't look like it's growing fast, give it like it'll keep growing. I mean, because it's going to go forever. So same thing as this one. This one also is going to go to the left forever. So it's going both directions forever. That's either all real numbers or negative infinity to infinity. In infinity, you always use the round parentheses. Or you could do that all real number symbol, which you draw like your two kind of straight parallel lines. And then from the left one, you do in capital R. That means all real numbers are basically everything. Range would be your up and down. So similar idea, it goes up and down forever. Nothing really exciting. There's no like holes or gaps in this graph. So most of these we're going to have a single interval. If you're hoping to see a problem where you have like a break or two intervals, I'm going to do that for my last question. So if you want to like kind of fast forward. So, but this would be also be negative infinity to infinity, or you could put that all real numbers. And this would also be a function. No vertical line hits more than one spot. So far, functions. All right, next one. This one's kind of unique, horizontal line. So domain is honestly not super exciting. It goes left and right forever. So very similar to the one we just did. That would be negative infinity to infinity, or you could write that all real number symbol. The range is just the up and down. So this one's unique in the sense that we only have one y value, just that line. Like any point on this graph, or so, like on this function, is going to have a y value of 3. Like that point would be 2, 3. Point over here would be like negative 3, 3. So since it's a single number, you could just put 3, or if you want to put like the bracket around it, you're not going to like, since it's not between two numbers, you're not going to do an interval with like the parentheses or brackets. So your range would just be 3. So you could put like those squiggly brackets if you like. Would this be a function? Well, it's a horizontal line. So of course it's going to pass. I mean, any line just hits one spot. So far, 3 for 3 in terms of being function. Let's look at a set of points. My advice is if you see a set of points, you might want to find the coordinates, because if your graph isn't connected together, your domain and your range is just going to be like your domain is going to be the x values and the range is going to be your y values. So if you write the coordinates, it can maybe help you not miss a point. Like if you don't write them out, sometimes you might skip a point or thought you did a point, but you didn't, kind of thing. So highly recommend, I mean, you do you, but it might be a good idea to write your points. So that's negative 3, 1. That's negative 2, 0. That's 2, negative 5. This point up here is 5, 1. This point here is 1, 4. And I didn't miss any. So our range, or sorry, we'll do the domain first. The domain is going to be the x values. So I typically go from small to big, so left to right. Technically, it doesn't matter. Some teachers are pickier, but as long as you have the set of the right numbers, you're good. But we'd have negative 3, negative 2, 1, positive 2, positive 5. And very similar with the range, we're looking at the y values. And I'm going to go from small to big, so I'm going to go like from the bottom up. So our lowest y value is negative 5. The next lowest is 0. Then we have 1. If you ever have more than like you have a repeat, just put it one time. You don't want to repeat yourself. Just like with writing, like if you're a good writer, you're going to be able to write concisely and elegantly. So it's kind of the same idea with math. Like if you can kind of get rid of some redundancy, it's like the same thing. It's like, I don't know, I'm going a little bit on a tangent, but it's like the same thing. If you had like negative 3, we usually just want to write that as a positive 3, because I mean, when you have extra stuff, it's just more things that can get mixed up or you can miss something. So like usually if you can get rid of stuff in math, like it's always a good idea. But that's why when you list it, just don't repeat yourself. And then 4 would be our last one. So even though we had 5 points, we only have 4 numbers in our range because we had a repeater. And I just realized I wrote these on the wrong lines. But oh well, we're committed at this point, aren't we? So does it pass the vertical line test? Just see, do any of the points have the same y value? You could either have looked at your coordinates, but none of these have the same y value. So this is also a function, 4 for 4. All right, a circle. So we'll start with our domain, looking at our x value. So the furthest it goes is to the left is there. The furthest it goes to the right is there. So it appears we're between negative 2 and 2. And since these are like points on the circle, or they're part of this function, they're not like open circles, they're going to be included. So those are going to be brackets. And then we'll do our range really quick. very similar idea. We're looking at the y-axis. So the lowest it goes is here, highest it goes is here. So it's hard to see the numbers, but that's 1, that's 5. So it's between 1 and 5. And those are also included because they're part of the circle. All right, does this pass the vertical line test? A circle is a dead giveaway. If you see a circle, it's not, because, I mean, plenty of lines you could draw that hit more than one spot. So our streak is over. We have our first non-function. Domain. Once again, another boring one. I mean, we take these, but same idea. It's very similar to other ones. This is going to keep going towards the right. This is going to keep going towards the left. So it doesn't have any like holes. Like I said, most of these on this sheet that I'm going through aren't very exciting in the sense that you'll just have one interval. I'll try and do one at the end, maybe where you don't. But this would be negative infinity to infinity. The range is a little bit more interesting in the sense that while it goes up forever, it doesn't go down forever. So we really want to think how low does it go and how high it goes up, but it's going to go up forever. So we kind of already know that answer just from earlier. So how low does it go? Well, the lowest it goes on the y-axis is at 0. So basically this is from 0 up. So that would be from 0, including the 0, to positive infinity. And then is this a function? Why, yes, it is. There's nowhere you can draw a vertical line that hits more than one point on the graph or the function. Now let's just kind of keep chugging along. Got kind of an interesting shape here. We'll start with our domain. So it might be hard to see, especially if you're watching like on a small screen, or I don't know, you guys aren't like a boomer like I am or anything, but for -4, the farthest it goes to the left is -4. That points out a little bit further than the other one above it. And then the furthest it goes to the right is 3. So it's between -4 and 3. The question is, what ends are we going to use? Well, the left end is solid, like this was a solid dot, so that's going to be a bracket. But since this farthest point was an open circle, and there's no like solid points on this x value, like there's no points that could like replace or take priority here, that's going to be a parentheses. I'm sure maybe some people were looking at this question. I'm sure maybe someone's watching, if anyone's watching right now, is maybe asking, what about this open circle here? Wouldn't that cause a problem? Well, it actually doesn't, because if you go on this y value or this x value of 2, there is a point up here that is solid. Like I'm just approximating, but maybe that's like 2, 4.5-ish. I don't know, something like that. While this open circle is 2, -5. So since we have a solid point with that x value, the function's defined there. We don't have to make a gap because there is a solid point there. If this function say had like sorry, I can't like erase. Say this function, like this part didn't exist and it kept going past, something like that, then you would have to do a gap. Like you would go from -4 to this 2 value that's not included, and then you would pick up at 2 and keep going. If it kept going forever, let's assume it'd be like that. So we'll look at like something like that, but just in case, I'm sure some people looking would think that would cause problems, but it's because you actually have a solid point at that x value that it's actually okay. Range. Well, the highest it goes is 5. The lowest it goes is -5. That's what we're between. And these high and low points are actually open circles, so they would both be parentheses. Is this a function? Heck no, it's not a function. It hits 2 spots, so nope. Let's look at this guy. So goes left, it goes right forever. I said that backwards. It goes right forever, it goes left forever. So all real numbers are negative infinity to infinity. Beyond boring. The range, looking at the y values. So the lowest it goes is -3, and then it goes up forever. So that would be including the -3 because it's solid to infinity. And this one would be a function though. Like it doesn't know where you draw a vertical line. will it hit more than 1 point? Wish I could get a blank graph. I don't know if I put one on with the sheet. Why are these all like not showing up? But let me pause this. I'm gonna see if I can get a blank graph quick. All right, so I want you guys to pretend that this graph is not extremely blurry right now. But let's look at, let's say we had something like, just to kind of show you when you have a gap. Let's just say we had something like this. Let's just say we had an open circle here. And maybe it continued going on. We'll see. I don't know if this is super exciting or not. It'll work, I think. So our domain, well, it goes left forever. So I'm in. And it goes right forever. But the problem or the difference in this question versus the ones we've been seeing, at least in this video or a lot of the other problems we've been looking at, is we've got a break in our graph. When I say a break in our graph is that it interrupts the flow of that graph. Like you actually have like a part and there's no, in this example I drew, there's no solid dots that would replace that circle somewhere, like that open circle somewhere else. So since there's a gap that can't be resolved, or like we don't have like a solid dot that would kind of count in place of it, we have to just go between the how far left it goes to that gap, and then we'll pick up from that gap to how far right it goes. So I did not write small enough. Let me see if I can try that again. So we're going left to right. So it goes from negative infinity. This is probably, I don't know how easy this is to see. This point is 2, 4, just to give you the coordinates. Excuse me. So it goes from negative infinity to 2. And since this 2 is not included, we have to kind of indicate that it's not part of our interval. So we'll do union, or that U just means like, hey, we have another interval here to look at. And then it picks up from 2 and goes to positive infinity. So like it goes from, just maybe have a color code, it like goes from here to here. But since there's a gap, we have to like stop our interval and then pick up where it left off and kind of go from there. The range for this one honestly wouldn't be very interesting. I mean, it's just from, it goes down forever, and the highest it goes is 4, like this point, like that's the highest point. And since that's an open circle, it would just be a parentheses. That should be a parentheses too. So I don't know if, I hope maybe this just gives some more examples, but I mean, if you really are struggling with domain and range, maybe try and come in one of my off periods. We can just look at a bunch of examples. Maybe you can kind of show me what you're thinking. Sometimes it's hard to, because it's such a visual topic. Sometimes it's just hard to see like things I'm seeing that I'm trying to get you to see. It's not always like an easy thing just to kind of translate. So sometimes just getting a chance to sit one-on-one with someone, I think we can maybe close some gaps if you're still having trouble. But I hope this helps. Like I said, I really am trying to kind of give you resources, but especially come in and take that extra time if you really need that extra help. I mean, it will, I promise you, it'll make a difference in your understanding. But have a good one. I'll keep posting some more.